I'm trying to figure out how covering up something that wasn't illegal makes it illegal.
I don't think that Trump's lawyers ever quite said it that clearly.
All right. Thank you for checking out Fill in the Blanks again. I appreciate you sharing the episodes and for your feedback. And yes, I do read your comments, so keep them coming. Today's something really different. We are obviously digging deep into the aspects of Donald Trump's trial, and I have someone here that I have respected for a long, long time. I consider him a really good friend. He has left an indelible mark on litigation in the United States. I'm talking about Rod Phelan. He's a former litigator from Baker Botts, a really renowned law firm. He graduated cum laude from Duke University School of Law. He's been recognized as one of the best lawyers in Dallas 11 times from 2011 to 2021 and was named to D Magazine's Best Lawyers Hall of Fame in 2022. Rod has a brilliant legal mind and an unwavering commitment to justice. When I say this is something really different, Rod is going to be an expert on Dr. Phil Primetime, taking a hard look at what's happened in this Trump trial, as I'm referring to it. And when I prepare for these and have top-level experts, I like to sit down with them ahead of time and let them educate me about what they know and at least prepare me enough to be able to ask intelligent questions. Because this is so complex and there's so much going on, I decided to just record this working session. So I'm pulling back the curtain and letting you guys listen in, look in, and see what's going on in this preparatory session for a really important episode of Dr. Phil Primetime, where I'm sitting down and talking to Rod Phelan and getting educated about what he thinks about what happened in this trial. He's a lawyer. I'm not. My expertise is in the jury part of this. So he's going to learn me up about what's going on. Right, Rod?
That's a big job. I'll give it my best.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. So you've been following this trial pretty close along the way. Obviously, you haven't been in the courtroom. We didn't have cameras in the courtroom. First, give me your 10,000-foot view of this thing. What's your feeling of it? Should this have happened at all? Was this a legitimate trial? Was it a travesty, as I've referred to it? What's your gut level take on this?
The case should not have been filed. It was filed, as I think everybody knows by now, by a district attorney who ran for office and won, promising, among other things, to get Trump. He then passed on this very case, took a lot of heat for doing so, and when Letitia James began to get all the publicity she got for going after Trump, he did a 180 and decided to file this case. The gist of the case is that Trump paid hush money, and that was a crime, and then he tried to cover it up. That's the heart of the case, and as a matter of law, it's wrong. Hush money never is a crime and wasn't this time for really compelling reasons, and those are that this woman paid to keep her secret, had no duty to tell it. She had every right to sell it. She had every right to tell it or sell it. She chose to sell it. Paying her to keep it quiet was not a crime. And if the judge had recognized this, he would have dismissed the case right out of the box.
All right, but let's look at this from somebody that doesn't know anything about the law, somebody that's just looking at this purely from a lay perspective. When you say hush money, that sounds serious, right? I mean, that sounds, I don't know, smarmy, shady. It sounds illegal.
And that's a big part of the problem that Trump had once he was faced with this case. There was an allegation that he had sex with a porn star. He denied it. There was an allegation that he paid her not to tell about sex with him. he denied paying her. He said somebody else was responsible for paying her, and he didn't even know it had happened. So when you're in a case and you have drawn those lines in the sand as he did, I didn't do it, and I didn't pay her, and I didn't know she got paid, the jury, when it hears that story, is going to raise its eyebrows. So he made a high hill for himself to climb by beginning this case denying something that most people would think, I don't know about that.
Yeah, this is kind of like the dog bite analogy, right?
Not my dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't get bit, and if you got bit, it wasn't my dog. He's saying, I didn't have sex with this woman, and I didn't pay her to not say I had sex with somebody did, which is fortunate, but it wasn't me.
And by the way, I then did pay him back 2 or 3 times what he paid her.
Yeah, for whatever reason. So it doesn't pass the smell test, but whether he did or didn't have sex with her is of no legal import whatsoever, is the point. Whether you like that fact or whether you don't, paying hush money to somebody to not say something that would reflect poorly on you is not illegal.
Correct. It is not, and it is not illegal when it is done by a political candidate either. And that was where they tried to catch him and call him, say that he was committing election fraud because he was running for office trying to silence someone who had something bad to say about him. But everyone who has ever run for office has gotten together with his supporters and said, look, there's some good news, let's play that up, and there's some bad news. Let's try to keep the spotlight off that. Let's deflect it. Let's hope it doesn't come out. There's nothing wrong with that. Every candidate does it.
They said that what he did was he violated a business records statute.
With the documentation of his payment that was reimbursing the payment to Stormy.
Okay, which was legal.
Which was legal. Paying Stormy was legal, but when his lawyer Cohen did that, reimbursing Cohen for paying Stormy was legal.
Okay, we've got People's Evidence 35 and 36 up here in the screen, and this is showing what they put up that covered his reimbursement, okay? And he was reimbursed $410,000?
Yeah, I think it got to 420 or 430 somehow, but.
Okay, so it got to 420. We've got a bonus, then 180, 180. This looks like 420 down there. You're right, use 420 divided by 12, $35,000 a month. That's the right number, correct?
That is how much they agreed to pay Cohen after the election.
Okay.
In 2017.
Okay.
Let me just stop and make this important point. This is an election fraud case. That's how the prosecutors described it.
Right.
This is election fraud, pure and simple, they said in the opening statement. But all of this, everything Trump did, happened after the election.
Trump's people.
Trump's people.
This all happened after the election because it says January 2017, start $35,000 a month, January 2017. The election was in 2016.
You can't have election fraud after the election.
So this happened after the election. These business records that they got him on for election fraud happened after the election.
Yes.
How can that be election fraud?
Nothing that happens after the election could be election fraud, including that.
Okay. Also, there's been a big flap about the judge said it didn't have to be unanimous. That's how you interpret it. It did have to be 12-0, but what he was saying is it didn't have to be unanimous about what the second crime was. They did have to be 12-0. They just didn't have to be 12-0 on what the second crime was. It could be 4 for this, 4 for something else, 4 for something else. Now, I've never heard of that, but apparently in New York, that is allowable. Is that right?
I think there's a big debate about that. I think that's going to be a point on appeal. Because New York, like every other state and like every federal court, requires jury unanimity in a criminal case. You can't have a 10-2 verdict like we have in Texas state court cases. You got to have all 12. And if you don't, you have a hung jury. so the issue was whether, if all 12 of you think this guy did something wrong, but you don't agree about what it was that he did wrong, can you convict him? And the judge said, yes, you can. And I don't know how that will ultimately be answered, but my instinct is that's wrong, that they all had to agree on at least one of the three allegedly criminal second acts in order to convict him. It would be, here's a simple way to look at it. Let's suppose somebody is arrested and tried for murder and bank robbery, and the jury says, we don't know which one of these he did, but he did one of them, guilty. I don't think that verdict would result in a sentencing. I think that would be a mistrial.
So you think them not specifying the second crime could be a point of appeal?
I do. And the judge, to avoid the possibility of this confusion, did not ask the jury special questions, special interrogatories. Do 12 of you think that Trump intended to violate the federal election code? Do 12 of you think he intended to violate New York election law? Do 12 of you think he intended to violate the federal tax laws? He did not ask that, so we're left without knowing whether 12 of them agreed that he did any of those crimes.
Okay, so what was the second crime that they convicted him on?
Well, they got a choice of three things. One was that he violated New York election law by unlawfully paying Stormy to promote Trump's election.
Okay, so violating New York election law.
Yes.
Okay.
The second one was violating federal election law by not reporting the payment to Stormy or to Cohen, and it wasn't clear which they were saying, as a campaign expense. The government said that when you paid Stormy or reimbursed Cohen, that was a campaign expense. And under federal law, you have to report campaign expenses. There was and still is a big argument about whether, as a matter of law, paying a porn star to not say, I had sex with that guy, was a personal expense, unreportable, or a campaign expense, just like paying for TV ads or paying your staff. And the state's argument was, yeah, that's just like paying staff, paying a porn star.
Mm-hmm.
That argument should not have won, but it did. And the third choice that the judge gave the jury in the charge was that Trump violated the federal tax laws. And this one is the strangest of all. The federal tax law violation was said to be giving Cohen a 1099. That's a tax form that says to the recipient, you've received this much income, and the government gets a copy of it, and the government knows that he has to pay tax on that. So the violation was said to be $130,000 of the amount that Trump paid to Cohen was just to reimburse him for the amount he had paid to Stormy, which was $130,000. But Trump's organization gave Cohen a 1099 for that $130,000. And Cohen paid taxes on it. So Cohen ended up paying more taxes than he owed because he didn't owe taxes on that $130,000. But once he got a 1099, he had to pay taxes on it. So the crime was you gave Cohen a false 1099, treating his income something that wasn't income. It resulted in Cohen's overpaying his taxes. The government is better off for it, but you are a criminal because that 1099 was fake. If the judge hadn't let Cohen's plea agreement in and let them question Cohen about pleading guilty and being guilty. But once that door was open, in my view, the judge should have let it in, let the expert testimony in.
Why wouldn't they have moved for a bill, sent the jury out, and put it in the record?
We don't know that they didn't, but they certainly should have sent the jury out, put that guy, Brad Smith, if that's his name, on the stand and asked him the questions that they wanted the jury to hear And then having completed that, they should say to the judge, I want you to let me do this in front of the jury. Will you do it now that you've heard it? The judge would have said no, but by making that record, by asking those questions and getting those answers, they would have preserved this point for appeal. It may not have been preserved.
So if they didn't do that, they may have waived that?
Maybe. It depends on the colloquy that went on around it.
Depends on what they said back and forth?
Yes.
That would be too bad.
He's got enough. He's going to get this thing reversed.
Either way?
Yeah.
Even without
it?
We'll talk about that some more. Anything else?
I can't think of it.
I wanted to share my final thought about this. This weaponization of our great institutions, the FBI, Justice Department, and individual states' similar institutions, will lead to one of two outcomes. One is more of the same from the other side, tit for tat. That may seem deserved, but it is not the right way forward for America. The other is what I call on you to demand from your politicians today, an end to this craziness in order to save the soul and sanity of our country. The Pope has actually given us the right approach in his new book when he says, we are all brothers and sisters, and there must be no resentment among us. For any war to truly end, forgiveness is necessary. That is true of any war, including our current cultural war. We need our Justice Department to return to the business of meting out justice and not running the political agendas of those currently in power, blindly seeking convictions, warranted or otherwise, and attacking political opponents. That requires a very few important things from each of you, from all of us. Finding your voice, forgiveness, and focus on the way forward. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Forgiveness, and at the same time requiring better. We are not some banana republic, for God's sakes. What are we going to do next? Have a Putin poisoning posse? And start finding political opponents foaming at the mouth at home, not so mysteriously dying in their lazy boy recliners? We're better than that. We must be better than that. I don't like what I see happening in our country. This kind of thing is exactly why I launched Merit Street Media and wrote, We've Got Issues. I don't like seeing the weaponization of our justice system, agencies, and powerful government actions that, frankly, just make my skin crawl for all of us and for my grandchildren. And let's be honest, this is so not just about Trump. If you let your hatred for Donald Trump compromise your ability to find true north on your moral compass, shame on you. If you let your disgust for Biden make you blind to the inevitable consequences of pursuing revenge, then God help the children who will inherit the dystopian nightmare we create. We need leaders who will pledge to end this vicious cycle right now and return us to that safe place where our institutions are no longer bastardized and weaponized, but rather simply serve their intended purpose. We have serious problems to solve, and it will take serious people to solve them. Men and women who we hold accountable for doing that which they were selected or hired to do. They need to know we are watching, and their positions are privileges, not legacies. They work for us until they don't. I'm not into politics. I claim no expertise, nor do I seek any. I don't advocate voting for one candidate over another. I stay in my lane addressing human behavior collectively, culturally, and am focused on how we can have maximum control in our lives and turn this ship of state called America in the right direction and get her back on track so we can be proud. That's my mission, and this is a call to action to save our collective soul and sanity. This is also a call to redemption, healing, and forgiveness that leads to peace among us all, which is the most important gift we can share in our dangerous world. The current administration could and should do the right thing. Dismiss now, even now, post-conviction of a political opponent, all such lawfare, and pledge to return to the normal functioning of a government rightly run. God bless you all, and God bless these United States of America.